Wonderful. So it's not Tallt Ventures, it's Tallt Ventures. But that's because we made up a word and stuck an umlaut on it, so it's really difficult to pronounce. And as Debbie said, she heard me chat at a InsurTech event, I believe it was. But really, the genesis of Tallt and what we get up to as a business is we track over 5 million startups around the world. So we look at the investment data that goes into these companies, and we layer on a bunch of researchers that we have around the world, and we draw a bunch of insights and trends that we advise big companies on where their futures are going, and who are those startups that are affecting those futures. Okay? That'll hopefully become a little bit more clear as I go through. As well as that, something you may have seen is Disrupt 100. So it's an index that we publish of the, it's kind of the next Airbnbs and Ubers. So these are the next ventures that are influencing, creating, changing global markets. All businesses that, at some point in the near future, if you're not familiar with them already, I'm sure you will be. So, my job here today is to give you a macro view of the world of disruption, and then hone that in a little bit to the world that you guys operate on a day-to-day basis. You may have seen this slide before. So this is the Fortune 500 companies that are out there. So some of the biggest companies in the world. Two really interesting things about these guys. Since the year 2000, 52% of these companies are no longer. Kind of amazing. In the next 17 years, it's expected that none of these companies, as we see them today, will be around. Now, I imagine some of you might be working for some of these companies. So what does that mean for you? Yeah? These guys are expected to have wholesale displacement, so they will not be in the market. There'll be a load of M&A activity, but in theory, they won't be there. Why is this? In part, because of this. So I'll wrap this up as maybe boardroom denial. And it genuinely is so nice. So I came here a little earlier and I saw all you guys queuing for lunch. I spend my life in boardrooms that are wood-paneled and populated of 10, 20, 30, 70-year-old white men, okay? And I talk to them about how their world is changing and what they need to do as a board to change as a business, to adapt as a business, to stay relevant as a business, to unlock potential as a business. There's so much diversity in this room. I love that. We need a little bit more of it in leadership, and I think that kind of is part of your job, right? Certainly with transformational leadership. So boardroom denial is one of these big things. But as well as that, you have a couple of other interesting trends. So you've got a world of startups that are appearing and scaling overnight. Okay, so it's dead cheap to set up a new company. So started my career 15, 20 years ago. To set up a tech business then, you needed to have about £500,000 plus. 10 years ago, maybe £50,000. I bet a bunch of you are involved in startups in some way or another at the moment, so maybe on a corporate sense or a personal sense, or at least you have friends who are involved in startups. We could get a startup up and running within 2 months with zero cost. Bit of sweat equity, get people to work for free in exchange for equity. Yeah? It costs nothing to get a tech business up and running. Then you marry that with a world of venture capital and corporate venture capital. There is tons of money out there right now to scale these businesses. Yeah? There's a glut of money. This money is looking for a home. Okay? So it's free to set up, and now there's a bunch of money to scale a business. That's kind of cool. Then you've got the customer. Yeah? So this might be an employee, but it might be a consumer. You've got a changing demand of immediacy, transparency, choice, mobility. And actually, we're really fickle. If something comes to us that is a good value exchange that we like the look of, I don't care whether you're a brand that's been around 150 years or 5 minutes. If the value exchange is there, I'm up for that swap. And if the value exchange continues, I'll be loyal to a fault. So, what you see is a bunch of new companies coming on the scene. Some logos I'm sure you'll be familiar with. Yeah? Anyone not familiar with any of these? It's a wrong question to ask, isn't it? Who's going to put their hand up there? So, we see that, but then we also see this, okay? So there are some startups that are successfully putting themselves on the map and scaling businesses. There's also an absolute ton of startups that are creating noise. Some of these are really crap, yeah? Some of them are amazing. What you need to do is you need to find the ones that are good and the ones that are relevant to you strategically. How do you go about doing that? Okay, we have a 3P approach. So, people. No business is going to succeed if they've got a really bad group of people behind them. Yeah? So who are the founders of the business? Where did they get educated? What did they study? What's their network like? Are they considered experts in their field? What is the product? What are they bringing to market, this company? What's their tech stack, if that means anything to you guys? What's the customer expectation, customer experience, customer pain that they're putting to market? What's the potential? So what's the growth opportunity? So what is the world that they operate in? So it might be niche, it might be a wholesale disruptor. What is the potential of that business? What traction have they got to date? So what sales numbers have they got? Maybe if they are super early stage, they haven't got any sales numbers, so it's more about what corporate partnerships have they set up? Something like that. What is their traction? So, first of all, there's a load of change going on in the kind of macro scale of the world and disruption. Then there's a bunch of startups that created as a result of that. Try to focus in and spotlight onto some particular startups using the 3 Ps. What do you do with that information then? Okay, so there's a load of stuff going on. So we spend our time with startups, but we also spend our time with the innovation teams, probably within a bunch of your companies. Build, partner, buy. Okay, so now you know what's going on in the market, so you've done all the venture scanning. What's your strategy? So the buy strategy, so within HR systems, it's a bit of a broad collective, so $2 billion was invested into that space in 2016. We're going to see more money invested into that space this year. That's loads of money, right? So no wonder a lot of tech startup is happening in that space, in your space. Lots of companies are moving into the partner activity. So how can we get a proof of concept off the ground to test whether this is going to have value to us? Yeah, it's a good strategy to deploy. And then there's the build. Corporates are really struggling with this build bit. This is bringing a new proposition to market, something that maybe you're seeing elsewhere that you want to copycat, or something that you know is wrong within your business that you need to innovate. How do you do this? Well, you can't do this without transformational leadership, something kind of alluded to earlier, and this is me teaching you guys to suck eggs, so forgive me. You can't change that without an agile culture within your business, but also the structure of your company. It needs to be creative. It needs to be reactive. It needs to be responsive. If you can get all of that right, then you've got a chance at doing this. And it's not about staying relevant. It's actually unlocking then the potential opportunities that are there faced by the world of disruption that's taking place. Now, within my window of 10 minutes to talk to you all about this, that's my bit done, allowing for almost 2 minutes of Q&A, which is bang on time for what I was asked. Hopefully that gives some context. This is my email address, both sides. Should you need to get in touch with any Q&As that you haven't got, I'm down to 1 minute. Debbie, would you like me to take some answers? Or shall I just walk off the stage? 52 seconds.
Blame my team. They keep WhatsApping me, telling me to do stuff, so I'm trying to do 2 things at once. Right, let's get into the handsome hall. Let's see if there are any questions. No questions from the audience. I can't believe it. Goodness.
I'm hoping that's because I answered all the questions, or it's because of the real left field speaker. But either way, thank you, all of you guys.
Hopefully that was an interesting insight. I'm sure it was, and gives you a different perspective of what's happening in the world today. Oh, I'm getting a... People, process, and product. What's most relevant?
Oh, well done. Oh, that's a question. All three. So you can't have a successful business startup without all three working across the board, and I think that's probably true of any business full stop, not just a startup.
Good. Well, I'm going to say thank you very much, Matt.
Thanks, no worries. Thanks, Harrison.